Hi guys, my name is Mohammed Abbasi, and today I'm going to be presenting my capstone over business intelligence solutions. And we're going to look specifically at schools and how we can use business intelligence for education and make an impact basically using those business intelligence solutions to see kind of like what we can do to make student success better. I'm going to be specifically talking about and looking into charter schools versus public schools and kind of the acquisition and questions there about what both systems look like and how charters are ranked and if they're effective or not, and how we can use that information to be more accountable for charters and have them move forward. So I wanted to kind of start off by actually introducing the topic a little bit more in depth. And basically, the best way to start this off is what is a charter school? A charter school, simply put, is a school run by public funds, but it's managed privately. And a public school is also run by public funds, but it's managed publicly by the ISD or the state. There's regulations and rules, and they can differ from state to state, but that's the main difference in a nutshell. There are charter schools that exist like in systems that are like, branches, and there's can be dozens of locations across different cities. And there's also independent charters. So the questions I wanted to kind of look at, interpret, and analyze today basically are: what does the test performance look like at these schools? What are like the big factors that make the education experience better and like those conditions? And what other supporting data can I explore and learn about to help me answer these questions and kind of learn how to implement business intelligence solutions for this purpose? So, kind of to give you like a little bit more of a background on why it's such a debate, is basically kind of like the whole question is, what is the impact of charter schools and are they bad for public schools, right? That's a question that many parents have all around the country and the world and other parts of the world too. There's definitely merit to both sides of the argument. And I think a lot of conversations and choices that parents are making, they aren't well informed. So I want to kind of take a look at the data and the factors, things like class size, just test performance and more, to really see what the trends are there. So the organization that I chose to look at is going to be NYC Public Schools. And NYC Public Schools is just the education department for NYC. They're the main educational department for the city. They're the biggest school district in the country. And those some of the reasons I chose them, but also, right, there's a lot of data and resources available to explore. I think NYC is a really good sample because it's such a diverse population between the all the immigrants and expats that are there, people that go there for work. So you get to see like all of the states kind of like in one good smooth sample. And then I think it's that makes it the best organization to explore these questions. So to give more context, right? What I first initially did was like looking into my sources into these different charter programs and nycpublicschools.gov and charterpublicschools.gov NYC, is that we can see from the results and the data that charter schools, they do perform better on tests according to their peers in math and English as well. We see the minority students as well earning better grades, and even what's kind of interesting is that they earn better grades compared to their white counterparts as well across the state. And that's really interesting to see because there is a bit of a gap there with trying to get the equity in place to be able to make sure that these students are set up for success. So that was really interesting to see, and I was able to see that just like across all the samples with like charter schools leading public schools in NYC. There were some supporting studies that were also mentioned, and we can see that there was also better performance outcomes in Los Angeles as well. And that's kind of like where I started the exploration. And that led me to look into the contributing factors. So, contributing factors and basically how I'm interpreting them using the data in the summaries and then data that I'll explore further in personal analysis is basically student success, it can be attributed to different things, but top of mind, like I mentioned earlier, like class size, that's a huge indicator for success. And with good class sizes, right, teachers are able to focus on the students. There's less distractions. They have proper time for each pupil. And also, right, they're able to just kind of like focus on teaching in that curriculum, which can be a challenge for class sizes that get, upwards of like 25, 30, which can be pretty common in public schools. Some argue that charters, right, they kind of have success based on the class size, but one of the kind of detriments that I see commonly mentioned is that in the enrollment process or the lottery process for folks that are signing up, they are more successful because they pick and cherry pick those who have more aptitude for success. So they'll look into things like such as folks being from like a two-parent household. They'll look at factors such as, how their grades and stuff already looked, or if they're like in a tutoring program. And then just because if their parents are involved enough in this process early on to get them into a charter, they're going to set them up for success and be involved, and not just kind of like on the buy side for their child's learning experience. But like from the statistics, right, we can see that there's almost like a 9-10% grade outcome that is present. And that makes it really interesting to see because, that's way above the standard error. So we can see that, like, these kind of narratives and anecdotes that people have, they're just not accurate at all. And that led me to basically go into looking into my own personal statistical analysis using SAS for refusal statistics. So in NYC, students, they can actually do performance-based learning without test, either through project-based learning or some other alternative. And that's just because, not all students are set up for success in the testing environment. And that led me to think that, hey, if there is like a large enough or like a big enough difference, we can see that, these students might be affecting like the outcomes of tests, or we can look into this more to see if there's like a relationship. And I felt like a relationship is most likely to exist. So what I did was I took the data, I put it in SAS, ran summary statistics, looked at it like a surface level, and then just used SAS and like its query functions as well to get like better information and view the info. And kind of like looking through the samples and info, and from my exploratory analysis to going further in SAS, I kind of found that there is a relationship, and it's not that it's significant, but the logic for what kind of like why these things exist kind of makes sense when you really think about the conditions for them. So for over 20% of the refusal tracking, it's actually completed by students with disabilities. So there's over like 1 million students in NYC. And we can see, right, 20% of them, if they're students with disabilities, they're going to need alternative arrangements in the first place. So it makes sense that, like, there would be like an average 14% refusal rate. This can sometimes get higher, up to like 30-40%, but it's kind of basically a something that's like an outlier, and those are like smaller schools that are just like, in a couple dozens or hundreds of students. And then the other big impact that we'll go into a little bit more detail pretty soon, just as like the impact COVID had, right, on education, not just on the students, but teachers and parents. We can see that it's a huge kind of deal, and we're still kind of dealing with the repercussions. And to kind of go into that more further, right, education similar to other industries, like I mentioned, students were really affected a lot because just like the COVID impact on parents, teachers, and themselves, and, just distance learning in general, it became difficult, especially for young students, to learn those core skills. And it's important to realize that we're still kind of making sure that these students can catch up through like tutoring, alternative arrangements. And, that would make sense for why there is greater refusal and alternative testing. And then from there, I kind of looked into more supporting data, right, just beyond NYC public schools, looking up into these charter systems like KIPP, IDEA Schools, Yes Prep, Uncommon Schools, and to look up more metrics and just things that would be able to show why that interpretation exists or what are those contributing factors. And, just for other ones that set up students for success, we can see that the college graduation rates at these charter systems are not just double, triple, but like more than triple sometimes, getting upwards of like 40%, which can be really huge because a lot of these charters, they take in a lot of minority students and helping set them up for success and making sure that they are able to go to college and have these greater educational and career outcomes is really huge. And it wasn't just in New York, right? Like I mentioned, Los Angeles and other cities are seeing performance and outcomes of charters. We see better results, graduation results, and it's a huge deal, like I mentioned earlier, for like these populations that don't have access to all the advantages. And from then on, I wanted to kind of think of like a business intelligence plan that we could implement that would make it easier to kind of build upon this data, but also make it more actionable for students and parents. And I think kind of like the greatest business intelligence initiatives that we see that we can also apply here is going to be the data visualization projects. We have the data. It might not be in the best dashboards or widgets, but we can present it in a way in a product for the students and parents so they can compare historical success with their students' current success and just like, from the year start. So I think that that would be the best way to action that. So what a business intelligence implementation would look like, right, is like a cloud platform. So Google, AWS, Microsoft Azure, having that education software that they use like Canvas or Blackboard that integrates with it, and then visualization like R or Looker to be able to have the visualizations. We have the historical data, which won't change. We'll just add the new year cohorts, and then having that information in a solution would be able to have students and parents and teachers kind of more accountable and on the same page. I think, though, kind of as I started to develop and think of the best way to implement this, is doing like a full product suite from scratch would be a bit of a challenge, pretty expensive. And we could honestly use, as I thought more and more, a static web page. And with the static web page, we could have the visualizations and have like a calculator similar to kind of like tuition or mortgage calculators that are very easy copy paste so that they can view the information easily, and just have like automated emails that go out that have the information so that parents can stay on track. And then that would be a lot less expensive. It could just be hosted for very minimal cost and would be able to help us reach our data visualization goals. And then, that's kind of just like my final thoughts, is that like it was interesting to see that charter schools are effective. They lead to better results. And then, the outcomes, including like, right, class size, test scores, minority success, and just college completion. These are huge milestones that just affect communities, and we can't even think about the impact and how they will just extrapolate over time. And then, right, also test refusals, they didn't have a significant impact because we can see the populations, COVID, and those effective and why they would need those tools. And then, right, business intelligence, it doesn't need to just be for businesses. It also helps set up students and other people for success. And basically, from kind of like with that final thought, is that there'd also need to kind of be more data research done, probably with like, similar populations, seeing like a metro population like Toronto in Canada that isn't the US but still metro and similar, looking at other states, doing north versus south. And just kind of like those are my concluding thoughts basically, is that, charter schools, they do make an impact. We need to kind of stop with the anecdotes and surface level conversation and really just look at the data and statistics, and that business intelligence can help us to continue to do this and allow students to be able to be set up for success. So those are kind of just like my final thoughts, and I was able to have a lot of fun with this project. Really liked digging deep, doing my own analysis, and then using the sources and everything from these programs, charter schools, and more. And I really appreciate y'all listening and coming here today. Take care.